Truth is making a comeback. America's Top Stories with Lisa K. Donner.
The politics of impeachment. Well, it isn't even January, and the new emboldened 116th Congress is ready to pounce. Unsurprisingly, President Trump is their target. What is behind all this talk of campaign finance violations and impeachment? Joining me now is Chief Political Correspondent Graham J. Noble. Welcome to Truth, Graham.
My pleasure, Lisa.
Well, it certainly appears that a number of congressional Democrats are chomping at the bit to impeach President Trump. So why don't they just do it in 2019? Why are they in such a hurry?
Well, I think, Lisa, the first question they've got to ask themselves is, would they actually be able to successfully impeach the president? Now, even though they're going to have a majority in the House in the 116th Congress, the next Congress, the Republicans still control the Senate. And I think it's a fair bet to say that there is not a single Republican senator who is going to vote to convict President Trump. And there's probably even a couple of Democratic senators who would at least think twice before they did so. So I really don't think the Democrats want to go through the kind of symbolic nonsense, if you like, of impeaching Trump in the House only to have him acquitted in the Senate. It doesn't really serve their purposes. They want to go all the way. They want to remove him from office.
That's a good point. So if the Democrats, as you predicted, are going to impeach Trump in 2019, what's the long game here? What are they planning, given that they're obviously intending to disrupt and damage the Trump presidency as much as they can before the 2020 election?
Yes, well, basically, I think they are. They've got a kind of a three-pronged strategy going on here, I believe. There are three parts of this plan that I foresee coming together.
Okay, so
we're seeing the beginnings of all of them now.
All right. So, what do you think is the most important point?
Well, essentially, like I said, there's kind of a couple of different facets to it. One of them is definitely keeping the special counsel alive as long as they can. Now, I know a lot of people have been talking about that perhaps Robert Mueller is winding down his investigation. You know, he's getting close to wrapping it up. I don't necessarily think that's true. And I think the Democrats will try to do everything they can to keep the Mueller investigation actually going right through until 2020 into the election campaign.
I think that's very interesting. You're right about that. What do you have, well, basically, what do they have to gain about getting rid of Robert Mueller? And I think that's the most important point. What do you have for number two, Graham?
Well, alongside that, of course, is the flood of investigations that are coming down the pipeline in this new Democratic-controlled House of Representatives. And I think what they're going to do, and on the investigation side, I think it's like another prong of the attack, because what they're going to do with that is go after Trump as the president in terms of what he's done. They're going after the executive branch in general. They're gonna basically pick apart and litigate everything that the executive branch has done basically since Trump has become president. So they're going to be firing off subpoenas. They're going to be holding endless hearings. They're going to be dragging current and former cabinet members and also Trump family members, Jared Kushner, Don Jr., Ivanka. They're going to be dragging them all up in front of congressional committees, the Oversight Committee and the Judicial Committee, to grill them on everything that Trump has done so far.
Yeah, one of the points that you made in the article that I thought was so interesting, which I'm gathering as point number three, is that it's going to be hard to really mount a 2020 campaign because they're going to want to investigate anybody close to Trump. Can you expound on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, basically, and that is really the third prong of this strategy, if you like, which is actually creating a situation in 2020 where there is, from the Democrats' point of view, I'm not necessarily certain all of this is going to work out the way they want it, but this is the way I believe they're looking at it. By 2020, they would have essentially constructed a pressure cooker aimed right at the president and his administration, with the subpoenas and the hearings and the Mueller investigation still either continuing at that point, or at least the aftermath, the autopsy of it, if you like, continuing to go on. All of these things, plus the additional factor of the threat of impeachment after 2020, when the Democrats, I think, will be assuming that they're going to take control of the Senate, which is, of course, what they're going to need. Because in 2020, right, there are 21 Republican senators up for re-election and only 11 Democratic senators up for re-election. So I believe they think the landscape is in their favor. I think they think they're going to take control of the Senate. And of course, once they have control of the Senate, they would actually be able to impeach and convict and remove the president from office. And they're going to hold that over his head. And essentially, you know, long story short, the whole point of all of these things in conjunction is to really make it almost impossible for Trump to effectively even campaign for re-election.
Well, let me stop you there, Graham.
Let me stop you there. Toward the end of your article on this subject, you suggest that the Democrats are doing is basically a kind of advanced election rigging, a new definition of election rigging, in fact. Can you briefly expound on that?
Sure. I mean, basically, essentially what I mean by that is they have redefined the art of rigging an election. And what they're doing is they're doing it by laying the groundwork in advance to essentially completely handicap or possibly even eliminate from contention altogether the Republican candidate, who of course will be Donald J. Trump. And the way they're doing that is by this plan of attack, whereby they make it so difficult for him to even campaign for the presidency that he may just decide not to even run for a second term at all. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is the kind of guy that is going to just give up like that, but I think that is the Democrats' plan. Either make him quit before he even runs for a second term, or simply make it almost impossible for him to effectively campaign.
Fascinating stuff. I think you've really put your finger on it in terms of analyzing what the Dems are up to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
That's Graham J. Noble, Chief Political Correspondent, LibertyNation.com.
Truth is making a comeback. Visit us at LibertyNation.com.